Hey guys, this is your community group video for the fourth and final week of the Busy, Not So Much series. Pastor Brad wrapped up this series for us on Sunday with a look at Mark chapter 6. And Pastor Brad's big idea for us on Sunday, I loved it in his title of his sermon, was doing crockpot ministry in a microwave culture. And he dug into certain parts of Mark chapter 6 for us. So let's just sort of rehash for a minute the parts of the story from Mark chapter 6 that Pastor Brad focused on. He pointed out how Jesus sent out his 12 disciples to do ministry, how they were to go out and they were to heal and they were to cast out demons and they were to preach the gospel, and how when they came back from those ministry tasks, Jesus seemed to notice that they were tired, that they needed a break, that they actually needed to stop and get some rest for a little while. And so Jesus decides to take his disciples off to a desolate place. Now, boy, doesn't that sound awful? He's going to take them out to a desolate place. It makes it, sound like he's taking them into this place where there's just steel and concrete and there's nothing to eat and everything's going to be really horrible. But actually, what the Bible means by saying that Jesus took them to a desolate place is that he was just taking them somewhere where there wouldn't be people, and the people weren't likely to follow them there, so that they could actually be away from the crowds for a little bit and get some rest for the ministry that they had been doing. Of course, in the story, they try to go off to this desolate place, but the crowds of people who are so enamored by Jesus and his teaching and his healing and his casting out demons, they follow them out to this desolate place. And Jesus does some more ministry with the crowds there. And toward the end of the day, the crowds are hungry and there's no quick way for them to get food. And the disciples come to Jesus. They go, Jesus, these people are hungry. We're in this desolate place where there is no food. What are we going to do? And Jesus says, you feed them. And I'm like, how are we supposed to feed them? And as it turns out, they find some fish and loaves, and Jesus does this amazing multiplication thing so that everybody in that crowd of 5,000, actually the 5,000 probably referred only to the men in the crowd. It may have been as many as 10,000 or a little more when you factor in the women and children who would have been there. But at any rate, he multiplies this food in this most miraculous way so that everybody in the crowd has some fish and some bread to eat. And there's this interesting detail where it says that there were actually 12 basketfuls of food left over. Wow, one basket for each of Jesus's tired disciples who had come out into this place to rest. So it's like Jesus is saying to them, now you've done ministry, you've done it well, and I'm gonna give you some food, and I'm gonna finally now make some rest possible for you in this place. And so we were thinking Sunday as Pastor Brad led us about the idea of microwave culture. It's such a great way to describe the busy culture that we live in, rushing from one thing to the next, searching for quick solutions to problems, trying to get things taken care of as quickly, as fast as we possibly can take care of. And we talked about how churches can even lay down expectations that people do ministry that way, that our ministry be sort of microwave ministry in a microwave culture, and we seek fast results. And sometimes that, more often than not, that just leaves us worn out and really incapable of doing effective ministry. And so one of the things Pastor Brad challenged us about Sunday was to do crockpot ministry in the midst of this microwave culture, to not move fast-paced the way the culture moves, to not expect always fast results the way the culture expects those results, but to sort of take this crockpot approach to ministry, this slow cooker approach to ministry in this microwave culture. And Pastor Brad pointed out three things that he sort of felt like from this text help us understand the way Jesus did crockpot ministry. And Pastor Brad pointed out that Jesus focuses on reaching out. He's always focused on people who need to know life in the kingdom of God, and focusing on people who seem the farthest away from God, who are just in desperate need of the goodness of God's kingdom. And Jesus focused on those people. And so a part of sort of doing crockpot ministry in the world is focusing on those who are in most desperate need of experiencing the goodness and life and the healing of the kingdom of God. The second thing that Pastor Brad pointed out by way of thinking about crockpot ministry is the idea of being focused on relationships. Jesus was so intensely focused on individuals and the well-being of individuals. And as we all know, when you intensely focus on another person and you start developing that relationship, well, relationships just aren't microwave kind of things. Relationships really are crockpot sorts of things. They take time. And so Jesus focused on relationships, which can be a slow and sort of arduous process for doing ministry. And the third thing Pastor Brad mentioned was just the idea of rest, that when we focus on reaching out and we focus on relationships, Jesus provides exactly what we need to rest when we need that rest and makes it possible for us to do that. And so the real challenge from Pastor Brad's sermon on Sunday was to focus on living in this rhythm of reaching out, of focusing on relationships, and of receiving rest as Jesus provides that for us, so that we sort of live counterculturally in the world. Instead of our ministry taking the shape of the microwave culture, our ministry, as Pastor Brad says, has this crock pot, slow cooking kind of effect in the midst of our microwave culture. Now, having processed all that, there are sort of three things, three jumping off questions I want you to focus on this week. And by the way, these were not in your weekly, on the back of your weekly on Sunday. So here they go, the jumping off questions for this week. I want you, let's just spend some time in your groups just thinking about this question. Why does ministry for the kingdom of God, if we're trying to bring other people in the kingdom of God and help people to experience the goodness and healing of the kingdom of God, why does ministry like that so often defy the fast-paced microwave nature of our culture? And otherwise, why do some things in the kingdom just not seem to happen so fast and so quick in the microwave fashion? Why is ministry more of a crock-pot kind of activity in the world? So that's the first question. The second jumping off question for this week is this one. I want you, as individuals in your group, I want you to think of a situation regarding a family member, a loved one, or a coworker that really needs a solution, a situation that's sort of bothering you. This person may really need to know Jesus. They may really need to come into the goodness of the kingdom of God through Jesus. I want you to think about that situation and process with your group, what would it look like for that situation to be resolved really fast, sort of in microwave fashion. But then I want you to think about with your group, sort of out loud processing this, and maybe you can help one another do this. Think about, how would Jesus approach that situation? And maybe we have some microwave results that we want, but really Jesus is saying, here's the crock pot way to approach this situation, and process that a little bit with your group. And here's the third thing, and really the final jumping off question for this busy series. In an interesting way, Pastor Brad brought us back at the end of this series to where we were in the first Sunday of this series, and that's dealing with how the way we think about God and whether or not we believe we can trust God to take care of things and to take care of us really has a lot to do with whether or not we can ever stop being busy and whether or not we can ever rest. So I want you to discuss with your group. We did this in the first week of this series. I want you to do this again this week. Process with your group what needs to change in the way you view God, and the way you think about God, and the way you trust God, so that you can actually begin to receive rest from Him, to begin to receive provision from rest, and to feel as if, like, yeah, it is possible for me to quit and to let God take care of some of these things. So those are the three jumping off questions for this final week of the busy series. Hope you guys have some great group meetings, and I'll see you in church Sunday if I don't see you around town before then. Talk to you guys later.